What's up, everybody? What's up? Welcome back to another Legal Hands to the Face podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bill Colarulo. We have a great podcast today, a great show, a lot of interesting topics. We're going to talk about Carson Wentz. Reports are he's teaming up with a former Philadelphia Eagles coach to try to revitalize his career, so we'll get into that. I also want to talk about a new Philadelphia Eagles book I'm reading. It's really helping to pass the time this long offseason, and it is bringing me back to that magical Super Bowl run the Eagles had in 2017. So we'll get into that a little bit. And then like we do every single week in the offseason, we'll do a little player analysis of different players on this roster and what expectations we have for them going into 2023. Today, we're going to talk about a few different players, the big man, Jordan Davis at defensive tackle, and what we're hoping to see from him in his second season. Our stud wide receiver, A.J. Brown, who's coming off a career year last year, and how he can get even better in 2023. All-pro cornerback James Bradberry, who I'm still shocked the Eagles were able to bring back, but I am thankful every single day that they could. Newly acquired tight end Dan Arnold and how he may fit into this roster this coming season. Young cornerback Zach McPherson, and will he have a new role on that defense this year? We saw it in OTAs, so we'll talk about that. And then returner Britton Covey. But guys, before we get into it today, just a reminder, if you're not already following us on social media, head over to all your favorite social media platforms. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Although we post the podcast weekly, we are posting content to our social media channels every single day. It also allows you to engage with us. You can comment, you can send us messages. So give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share. The more Eagles fans we can reach, the better. And if you haven't already left us a review on the podcast, it would really mean a lot if you could head over to whatever platform you're on, go to the review section, and leave us a review. It really helps us to reach more fans. We are getting close to training camp, and guys, we have so many exciting things and exciting guests planned as the season gets closer. So the more fans we could reach, the better. Make sure you guys are subscribed because we got a lot of awesome things coming your way. But before we get into the topics I want to discuss today, I'm going to hit you with a trivia question. I will give you the answer at the end of the show. But here is the Philadelphia Eagles trivia question of the day. No cheating. Don't go online and look. If you're following along on social media, leave a comment below as to who you think the answer is. But who has played the most games in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform? And then bonus question, who can beat that record this coming season? So if you're following along on social, leave us a comment below, and I'll give you the answer at the end of the show. But let's jump right into a little Carson Wentz talk. Reports from ESPN are that he has teamed up with John Gruden. Wentz and Chucky have teamed up in Tampa Bay. They're working on Wentz's mechanics. They're working on his film study. These guys are both hoping to get back into the NFL and revitalize their careers. I mean, there's an interesting question right there. Who is more likely to get back in the NFL, Carson Wentz or Jonathan Gruden? We all know John Gruden. Man, I called him Jonathan because I'm so used to Jonathan Gannon. But who's more likely to get back into the NFL, Carson Wentz or John Gruden? We all know what happened with Carson Wentz's career. Looked like an absolute stud in 2017, and then we saw his career decline quickly. He gets traded to the Indianapolis Colts in 2021. He only plays one season there. Owner Jim Irsay did not hide the fact that he was not a fan of Carson Wentz, and it all came to a head in Week 18. The Colts only had to beat the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars, who were not a good team that year, and the Colts would have made the playoffs. They lose to the Jags, which really helped the Eagles, if you guys remember correctly. It gave them a higher draft pick. Wentz did everything we needed him to do that year. He played them the amount of snaps we needed him to play, and the Colts don't make the playoffs, giving the Eagles a pretty high first-round draft pick. But then the Colts immediately ship him to the Washington Commanders in the offseason, and the year he had in Washington was ugly. He only started 7 games, and he went 2-5 for the Washington Commanders last year. The injury bug got him again. He missed a bunch of games. He came back in Week 17, and he threw 3 interceptions in that game, and he was benched for Week 18. So no surprise, the Washington Commanders release him in the offseason, and now Carson Wentz is looking for a job. The problem that I see with Carson Wentz is I do not think he has it in his DNA to be a backup quarterback, and there is no team in the NFL that's going to give the guy a chance to be their starter. At least not right now. Maybe if a starter goes down or gets hurt, they'll bring Wentz in. I just don't see it happening, and he's definitely not going to be brought in to a quarterback room to try to teach a young guy. The stories we've heard about him is he's not a great leader. He doesn't relate to his teammates very well. He doesn't seem like a guy that's going to be able to come in and be a backup quarterback, something we've seen Nick Foles do so well. Other quarterbacks do so well where they're able to really bring a young guy under their arm and show them the ropes. That's not going to be Carson Wentz. I'd be shocked if he gets another opportunity anytime soon. But will he get an opportunity before John Gruden? As you guys may remember, Jonathan Gruden was the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, and he was forced to step down in 2021 because the NFL was doing an investigation into the Washington Commanders. They weren't even looking into John Gruden, but this investigation found emails that Gruden had sent to the Washington Commanders, which included some really insensitive comments, some racial slurs, some homophobic comments. He's forced to step down. Will he ever get another opportunity? We all know Gruden is touted as being this great offensive mind. In fact, the New Orleans Saints brought him in this offseason to help them work with Derek Carr, who they just acquired, to try to build an offense. So Gruden's name's been around. And I see if Wentz can get back to that MVP form, this may be exactly what John Gruden needs for a team to bring him back on, because there's going to be a lot of backlash if they hire Jonathan Gruden after what was said. But will a team think it's worth it if they think he has the ability to revitalize a guy like Carson Wentz? They may take a chance on him, but we will see. But if you guys are following along, leave us a comment. Who do you think is more likely to get a chance in the NFL? Carson Wentz or Jonathan Gruden? It's an interesting question, and I think we'll find out the answer soon enough. But let's jump right into that book I was telling you guys about, because talking about Carson Wentz brings us to that 2017 season. I recently had lunch with Sal Paolanotonio from ESPN, and he wrote a book called Philly Special. And I started reading it, and it is really, really good and really well done. Every chapter is a different week from that 2017 season. I'm about halfway through the book, and man, it's reminding me of all the adversity that team faced. And it wasn't just injuries. I mean, they faced a lot of injuries they had to overcome, but there was a lot of other things. When I'm done that book, I'll do a full book review for you guys. But if you're looking for some summer reading on the beach this summer to try to pass the time, pick it up. Philly Special, really good, giving me goosebumps at times thinking about how that season ended. Little spoiler alert, they do win the Super Bowl. So if you didn't know, the Eagles win the Super Bowl at the end. But man, it is a really, really good book. And let's jump right in now to what we can expect from some certain players going into 23 that'll hopefully lead us to another Super Bowl victory. I want to talk first about the big man at defensive tackle, Jordan Davis. This guy is 6'6", 336 pounds, and he ran the 40 in 4.78. 336 pounds, and he ran the 40 in 4.78. It's the fastest time they've seen for a guy over 330 pounds since 2006. And maybe more impressive is his 10-yard split was only 1.63 seconds. 2 years ago at Georgia, he was the Chuck Benderek Award winner for the best defensive player in football. He was the Outland Trophy winner for the best interior lineman in football. The Eagles moved up in the draft to get him at number 13, but his rookie season was a little bit of a disappointment. He had an ankle injury in week 8. He only played in 13 games, and in those 13 games, he had 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hits, and only 4 quarterback pressures. That was the knock on him coming out of Georgia. The Georgia Bulldogs didn't really ask him to do a lot of quarterback rush. They only had him in on running downs, not a lot of passing downs. So the question was, can he step into the NFL and generate pressure in a passing league? We know the NFL is a pass-first league. Can Jordan Davis step up to really generate that interior pressure that is so important in today's NFL? That's what we have to see from him this season. We didn't see it last year. I'm sure his ankle injury lingered all season long. When you're a guy that's that big and you hurt your ankle, that's something that's going to take a while to get back to 100%. But I am hopeful that you're going to see Jordan Davis step in this year into a really significant role. He's got all his Georgia Bulldog friends around him now. He's going to have Nakobe Dean behind him. He's going to have Jalen Carter right next to him on that defensive line, along with Nolan Smith. What can Jordan Davis do this year? Can he become a starter that's going to have a significant role? I think that he can. And then a fun fact about Jordan Davis. How crazy is this? At his size, he wanted to be an astronaut as a kid. Could you imagine 6'6", 336 pounds walking on the moon? Now that would be a sight to see. But Jordan Davis, what do you guys, if you're following along, what do you think Jordan Davis is going to do this year? Is he going to have a big role? Is he going to have a significant impact on that defense? I hope so. 1 year under his belt, learning from Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and even Milton Williams, I expect big things from Jordan Davis this season. Well, let's go to the other side of the ball on offense. Our stud wide receiver, A.J. Brown. It's hard to believe, but A.J. Brown is still only 25 years old. He'll be 26 at the end of June. He's 6'1", 226. They call him Swole Batman for a reason. The guy is absolutely jacked. He's entering his 5th season in the NFL, and he's coming off the best year of his career with his best friend, Jalen Hurts, throwing him the ball. He had 88 catches, 1,496 yards, and 11 touchdowns in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, he had another 29 catches for 435 yards and 3 touchdowns. Oh, and there's more. He broke a 38-year-old Philadelphia Eagles record of the most receiving yards in a season, passing Mike Quick. Man, that record stood for 38 years. Pretty incredible. But I still have more expectations for A.J. Brown this year. Another year in this Philadelphia Eagles offense. Another year working with Jalen Hurts. And another year with these other pieces also getting better. Hurts is going to get better. You saw it. You know what Jalen Hurts' work ethic's like. He's going to become a better passer, which in turn is going to help A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith is going to get better. That wide receiver 3 position, I expect more from that wide receiver 3 position this year, which is going to hopefully put more single coverage on A.J. Brown, which is going to allow him to have a lot more open space. And we know what he can do with the yards after catch. A.J. Brown can rack up the yak if he gets in open space with that ball. So I expect to see some really big things from A.J. Brown. And it's still amazing to think that the Eagles were able to get A.J. Brown on a draft day trade with the Tennessee Titans. Why would you give up on a guy like A.J. Brown if you're the Tennessee Titans? But the Eagles make a trade. They sign him to a 4-year, $100 million deal. And I expect some big things from A.J. Brown in 2023. But what do you guys think? If you're following along on social, leave a comment below. Do you think A.J. Brown can have an even better season in 2023? Would love to hear from you. And then let's move over to the other side of the ball, to another all-pro, our cornerback, James Bradberry. Still cannot believe that the Eagles were able to bring this guy back. It looked like he was going to definitely price him out, that he was going to not be able to be brought back. I don't think the Eagles were necessarily going to bring James Bradberry back. The reports are that they had prioritized Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson wanted more money, thought that the safety market was going to be higher than it was, so they pivoted. Great job by Howie Roseman, and he decides to bring back James Bradberry. They signed him to a 3-year, $38 million deal. He's going to be entering his 8th season. Bradberry's not a young guy. He's going to be 30 years old in August. He's played 4 seasons for the Carolina Panthers, 2 for the New York Giants, and last year for the Philadelphia Eagles, with last year being his best season. He started all 17 games in 2023. He had the 3rd most passes defended in the NFL with 17. And here's an interesting stat. James Bradberry leads, let me say that again because I think I stuttered his name. James Bradberry leads all NFL with 79 passes defended since 2018. That's shocking to me. Out of all the corners in this league, James Bradberry leads the NFL with 79 passes defended since 2018. And in 2022, he had the 3rd lowest opposing passer rating in the league. Opposing quarterbacks had a passer rating of only 55.9 going against James Bradberry last year. And that's a minimum of 50 targets. So, don't comment that there were people who had better passer ratings. If they didn't get targeted more than 50 times, I didn't include them. But I expect some good things from James Bradberry this year. He's going to have to step up. They're not going to have the experience on that back end like they had last year. They lose Marcus Epps. They lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So we're going to have some defensive backs working that safety position that weren't there last year. So, James Bradberry, Darius Slay, they're going to have to step up. They're going to have to play even better than they played last season. So we'll see how things go there. But what do you expect from our man, James Bradberry? Although he had a great season last year, what a lot of people are going to remember is that holding penalty in Super Bowl 57. So Bradberry's probably coming into this season with a chip on his shoulder, working hard to prove everybody wrong that he really is an all-pro corner. So thank you to Juju Smith-Schuster for lighting that fire under Bradberry. Let's switch over to the offensive side of the ball and a new addition. This was kind of a below-the-radar signing, like most free agent signings for the Eagles were this year. They bring in tight end Dan Arnold. He's 28 years old. He's 6'6", 240 pounds. He was undrafted in 2017, and he's been in the NFL for 7 seasons. He's played for the Saints, the Cardinals, the Panthers, and most recently, the Jacksonville Jaguars. What I think this guy can bring to the Eagles roster, and the reason he may make this team, is he's a solid blocker. And that's something the Eagles can definitely use some help with at the tight end position. Outside of Dallas Goedert, who we know is an unbelievable tight end who has that starting position locked up, there's a lot of question marks and a lot of unknowns for that backup tight end position. Grant Calcaterra, who was a 6th-round pick last year, not a very good blocker. Then you have Jack Stoll, Tyree Jackson, and a rookie free agent, Brady Russell. Tyree Jackson, who I've been high on, he was a college quarterback. I thought he could have really contributed, just can't stay healthy. And Jack Stoll doesn't have a lot of pass-catching experience from that tight end position. But you look at Dan Arnold. I mean, this is a guy who's had some decent seasons in this league. In 2020 for the Arizona Cardinals, he had 45 catches and over 400 yards. In 2021, he had 35 catches for over 400 yards. So this is a guy who's been able to catch the ball out of the backfield, from that tight end position, and he has the ability to block, something that's so important in the NFL, especially with a team like the Eagles who like to run the football. Your tight end is an extension of that offensive line. And outside of Dallas Goedert, there's a lot of unknowns. I could see Dan Arnold making this team and being your backup tight end and getting some burn on that team. Moving over to young cornerback Zach McPherson. Zach McPherson is only 25 years old. He's 5'11", 190 pounds. He ran the 40 in 4.48. He was a 4th-round draft pick in 2021 out of Texas Tech. We haven't seen a lot of him on defense. He did play in 16 games in 21, 17 games in 22, but most of that was on special teams. In fact, in 2022, he led the Philadelphia Eagles in special teams tackles, but we haven't seen him at that cornerback position. But in OTAs in June, the Eagles had him playing that slot nickel cornerback position, which is interesting. That's a position that's usually occupied by Avonte Maddox, who, when healthy, is one of the best nickel corners in the league. The problem is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. In 5 seasons, Avonte Maddox is only averaging 12 games, and he's only played more than 13 games one time in his career. So who's that backup at that slot corner position? They were working Zach McPherson in there. Can he step in and play that position? There's going to be some competition there. The Eagles brought in Greedy Williams this offseason. They also have Sidney Brown at safety. Could he play a little bit of slot? We'll see, similar to like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson did last year. They brought in Keely Ringo in the draft. Can he step in and play the slot position? So some question marks there, but Zach McPherson's probably going to get a chance to get on the field this year. He's going into his 3rd season. Now's the opportunity. I like what I see from him. He's definitely a guy who battles. We saw it on special teams, having all those tackles, but how will he man up in coverage for this defense? We're going to find out this year. And then let's do a little special teams. Britton Covey. This guy is only 5'8", 173 pounds. He's 26 years old, and he was an absolute stud returner in college for the University of Utah. We didn't really see a lot of it last year, though, especially in the beginning of the season. But he came on late. If you look at his total stats for 2022, he had 33 punt returns. He only averaged 9.3 yards a punt return. He had 10 kickoff returns. He did average 20.6 yards per kick return. But the interesting thing is in the last 10 games of the regular season, He averaged 13.3 yards per punt return. The NFL leader, looking at it with over 25 returns, was New England's Marcus Jones. He averaged 12.5 yards a punt return. So you look at the last 10 games of Britton Covey's NFL career, his first NFL season, he had 13.3 yards a carry. That is extremely promising. I am hopeful that Britton Covey is going to really step up this year with another year of experience and be a solid punt returner for this team, something that they really have lacked since Deshaun Jackson, really. I mean, they haven't had great punt returners. But if this is a guy, Britton Covey, who, number one, can be reliable, the first thing you got to do as a punt returner is catch the ball. We didn't really see him have a lot of problems there, but can he get back to that form he was at Utah, which was one of the best returners in the nation? So we will see. What expectations do you have for Britton Covey? Not sure you're going to see him return a lot of kickoffs. It's a little bit of a different skill set, but he will definitely step in and has the potential to be a good punt returner. But leave us a comment below if you're hopeful that Britton Covey can step up and be the punt returner that I think he can be. Guys, that's it, but let's go back to that trivia question. So if you answered, who has played the most games in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform? The answer, David Akers with 188 games. My man, David Akers. Fun fact, I used to walk the tee out to David Akers when I worked for the Philadelphia Eagles. So after he would kick off, I would get the tee, but after extra points and field goals, I would walk the tee out to David and hand it to him so he could kick off. So fun fact from there. But who can beat him this year? So who could pass David Akers as the record holder for most games in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform? Shockingly, there are 3 players on this Eagles team that could all pass David Akers in 2023. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelce, and Fletcher Cox. So David Akers has played 188 games in an Eagles uniform. Brandon Graham, 178. Jason Kelce, 176, and Fletcher Cox, 173. If all 3 of those guys stay healthy this year and play all 17 games, every single one of them will pass David Akers, and they will be your top 3 Philadelphia Eagles history for most games played. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome that we have guys like that on this team. Great leaders, great veterans. So we will see what happens this year. Guys, as always, I really appreciate you listening. Again, check us out on all your favorite social media platforms. Send me a message if there's anything you want to discuss. But stay tuned because we do have some really, really exciting things planned as the season approaches with some fun guests, some awesome guests, and some really informative guests as well. And I'm working on some things behind the scenes. I will update you guys soon enough. Thanks for listening. And as always, go Birds.